How about some games of the year to circle in the first quarter to maybe the first third of the season? Again, these are not maybe the biggest games in the country, although in some cases they will be that given weekend. But these are games that I'm excited about for a number of different reasons. This is not an exhaustive list, so not every game I'm excited about can I fit into this segment. But let's start in week 2. How about Oregon at Ohio State? Now, this one's obvious. This is going to be one that everyone labels the game of the week. Ironically, it may not even be the game that yours truly is at that week for reasons I'll mention in just a second. Think about the matchup here. The matchup everyone will be talking about is Ohio State's wide receivers against Oregon's defensive backs. I've talked to at least one staffer that thinks that's a glaring mismatch that Oregon's going to be ill-equipped to, battle back from early in the year. And so that's going to be one of those popular talking points that has some merit to it. I'm not saying it doesn't, but what I'm also excited to look at is both quarterbacks. I mean, the quarterback position at both schools has a level of uncertainty about it from, let's say, the experience or the proven experience standpoint. Now, Anthony Brown's played a lot of football. Not a whole lot of it at Oregon, but he's played a lot of football. He's a transfer guy. He's been around forever. He's like drawn AARP mail by now. But we don't know what to expect fully from him this year. I think Oregon's wide receiver core is easily the best Mario Cristobal's had. But I also think Ohio State's wide receiver core is certainly the best in the country this year, much less the best that Ryan Day and Brian Hartline have had. But my question also is, with all that immense talent, if C.J. Stroud is who we think he'll be, this is the kind of game where they'll pop and they'll shine, and we'll look at it and say, how in the world is anyone going to beat them this year? Could be one of those games. We'll see. But remember, take this in the proper context, because a game I'm not going to list that also bears close watching on this same day is Washington at Michigan. So you could be taking, for argument's sake, let's pretend Southern Cal is going to be competitive, but let's say Washington and Oregon, two of the very best that the Pac-12 has to offer this year. They're both headed to the Big Ten on the same day. This is off the heels of UCLA playing LSU in week 1. We could be coming out of week 2, and you could have already left the Pac-12 for dead, or you could be saying the Pac-12 is the early surprise story in college football this year. The second game I want to talk about is not in a conference period. It's a cross-conference rivalry game, the Cy-Hawk Trophy. I've always thought I could come up with a better trophy name for this, but I digress. This is one of my favorite games of the whole year. I have bias here. I'm an Iowa State guy. Didn't grow up there, just love everything about Iowa State. Iowa State has not beaten Iowa, it feels like, in several administrations. Matt Campbell has not beaten Iowa. He is, 0-5. Didn't get to play the game last year. He'll be favored this year. Iowa State welcomes in Iowa in week 2. One of the things I like about this rivalry game is it's earlier in the year as opposed to a vast majority that are later in the year. This could be the biggest game ever in this rivalry. And I'll tell you what really could put the capper on that. If Iowa beats Indiana in week 1, which is a very losable game, but if they win that game and Iowa State merely takes care of business against Northern Iowa, these two will be ranked as high as they've ever been ranked, at least comparatively, when they face each other in week 2. You add in the fact that you get back the full stadium effect, and it's always just an insane environment anyway. I've always watched this thing from afar and thought, man, that's crazy. And I grew up in the SEC, so everyone brags about SEC environments, and they should. They're incredible. But I've always watched this one and said, that's no joke either. Look forward to trying to find that out this year myself. How is this not a one-possession game, though? Where you look at the quarterback situations, you look at the styles of play, you look at the offensive personnel in general, and you think about how tense this game is. Look at my fist. How tense this game is. How is this not a one-possession game? If someone's not minus 4 turnovers, how is this not a game that you are watching with 2.5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter with the outcome still in doubt? This is one that I think everyone should have circled. Again, Iowa State's going to be favored here. Iowa State under Matt Campbell, 0-5. Now, they know that stat. It's tattooed on everyone's forehead in Iowa, but maybe outside of that small bubble, maybe you don't know that. Well, you do now. Let me go to week 4. I'm going to talk about a couple of games in week 4, but the one that's going to be the headliner, I'm going to say for last. There's another one that's not going to be the headliner, but I think when the dust settles at the end of the day, it could very well be the one that everyone's talking about, and that is Arkansas versus Texas A&M. This is obviously an SEC Western Division game. They don't play it on home campuses, though. They play this one in Arlington, Texas. Notre Dame, Wisconsin's the same day. I'm going to talk about that game in a second. But this is the first true test for A&M. Or let me put it this way. If A&M has already been pushed to the brink before this, they got bigger problems than Arkansas. Having said that, this is week 4, okay? Arkansas has already played Texas. Maybe they've already lost a game. Who knows? But this one right here is the opener of conference play. And we got a lot of things that we expect to know about Texas A&M. You think the running back stable, it could be the best in the conference. The wide receiver stable should easily be the best they've had there so far. Haynes King, while maybe Preview Magazine culture thinks if you lose Kellen Mond, you have to take a step back. Aggie fans think, maybe we upgrade from good to very good at the quarterback spot. Point being, this is where you start to get the answers. All the summer, I'm not going to say the O word, this summer period, that's what the talking's for. SEC Media Day next week, that's what the talking's for. But this is where you start to find it out. And I'm telling you, no matter where you see Arkansas ranked in the preseason, it's going to be a sum greater than the individual parts product that Sam Pittman puts on the field. Not much different than last year. And I also want to tell you this, the difference between ranking and power rating teams. A lot of people are going to rank Arkansas lower than a power rating should have them, because they're going to look at their schedule and they're going to say, well, this is the toughest schedule in the country, which it probably is. And they're going to say, well, I expect them to struggle to make a bowl game. Well, that's all well and good, but that's relative to schedule. If I took that same Arkansas team and had them play an AAC schedule and I predicted them to go 9-3, well, would I all of a sudden rank them higher? I shouldn't. The team is what the team is. So my point is, don't underestimate Arkansas. This should be a battle. This is not one where I think A&M's pulling away and they're resting starters in the fourth quarter. Fourth game, one of the first ones you'll see all year. It's a Friday night, week 1 affair. It's on the road for North Carolina. They're going to Virginia Tech. I'm giving consideration to go into this game. It's going to be an intense atmosphere. I think people are going to underestimate what that atmosphere's impact on this game will be. Nervous spot for North Carolina. Every time that you watch a shuttle take off, for example, it looks like it should. In the control center, everything is operational. All those computer monitors have the correct readings on them. But until you get that thing all the way up into space and those rocket boosters detach and, then the rocket, they take over. They turn over control from Houston. Then you take your seat and you lean back a little bit and the white knuckles leave and, okay, we're comfortable. I feel the same way about North Carolina. I know that's graphic. I know it's vivid. I feel the same way about North Carolina. There is a lot in place. Feels like they got the best opportunity they've had in a while. Proven commodity at quarterback. We think they're upgraded defensively. I do, at least. And while they have some pieces to replace it, running back, for example, I feel really good about Ty Chandler. And I also just trust the offensive staff in general. But having said that, you don't know. It's college football. You close your eyes and you throw it out there in week 1 and you hope the product is what it's supposed to be. It's very hard to start fast in week 1. Let alone on the road in front of people who have not been in a packed stadium for 2 years now, and a place where even if you don't expect Virginia Tech to do a lot this year, they don't know that in week 1. It's hard to play in week 1 because everybody's a contender in week 1. You get max effort from everyone in week 1. So that one, I think that's going to be a sight to see. Purely for spectacle purposes alone, if you don't even know how to spell football, that's going to be a sight to see. And the last one is in week 4. It's in Chicago. It's Notre Dame versus Wisconsin. Plan on being at this game. The expectation, I can tell you now, is going to be the winner of this game gets slingshotted right into the playoff conversation. I don't know that it's that simple, only because both of them have losable games the next week. Wisconsin, I think, goes on to play Michigan. Notre Dame, they play Cincinnati the next week. Cincinnati's off a bye. In fact, Colin, listen to this stat because it's going to sound like I make it up. This begins a stretch for Notre Dame where 6 out of their next 7 opponents have a bye before they play the Irish. You heard me right. So ridiculous I have to say it twice. 6 out of 7 opponents, there's a stretch in Notre Dame's schedule where 6 out of 7 opponents in a row have byes before they play Notre Dame. It almost doesn't seem fair. It almost seems like college football may not be set up for Notre Dame to just automatically succeed. My point is, nothing is decided after this game, but it certainly is pivotal, and we get the old Jack Cohn, formerly known as Jack Doan on this show, against his old school storyline, if you're into the storylines. So those are a lot of circle games that at least I have circled, and if you don't have them circled, I'm going to need a good explanation as to why.